You're up, Commissioner.
All right. Doesn't look like we have any changes to our agenda. So, our first item will be the Board of Ambulance.
Mr. Chair, I move that we enter into the Board of Ambulance.
You have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ryan?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So we have two items before you this morning. The first is a request to use, around here in Bannock County Ambulance District. Better identify myself for the audience at home. The first item is to use $35,000 of FY23 fund balance for a project that we've identified. This is going to be combined with the same amount of money from the city. And in the city side, it's also fund balance from FY23. This was a project that we learned about just this summer after we had prepared the FY24 budget. And so it wasn't budgeted for in FY24. We received approval to use FY23 fund balance on the city side, and we're asking the commission for the same on the ambulance side.
Do you have any questions on that?
It's going to be paid by the city, so they're going to work it out in their books.
So this money's coming out of reserves then?
Well, right now, we have a $40,000 credit with the city of Pocatello if we were to settle FY23 today. The proposal is going to be to use 35 of that, so we'll get a $5,000 check instead of a $40,000 check. And how they're going to work that out on their side is their books, not mine.
Still makes me question.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't do this in the county. There's no way to go back and take 23. We're in 24.
Yeah.
So that's
Understood.
a big question.
Yeah. This is something unique. We haven't done this before. This is one way that when we have an identified project on the city side, and I realize that's why I'm here today, this is kind of uncharted territory for us. We haven't gone back and done this type of transaction before. But I think in order to accomplish this project, I think it's going to be very valuable to the district moving forward as we look at options for additional staffing, both locations and time periods of when to staff those. I think it's in line with some of the things we've been talking about as we look towards South County. And so in recognition of that value, we're trying to see what's possible to ensure this gets done.
Well, was this same thing done a couple of years ago? When I remember coming to City Hall and listening to a report of some people that come in and did an evaluation and all that.
That was, I think, done, you might be referring to in 2018. I believe
been that
Chief
long?
Gates had a master plan done
Uh-huh.
where they did perform a little bit of just some kind of analysis of the system, but it was kind of a snapshot. What we're proposing here is more of data digestion into this company's system and have their analysts look at it. And then it's going to be both predictive. It will allow us to look at different options. What would happen if we put an ambulance here? How would it affect call volumes and response times? What if we staffed at these hours? It allows you to run different scenarios in order to find the best locations and staffing models. So that is beyond what was done previously. So,
Are there, what's the name of the company that has this software?
it's Dark Horse Analytics.
And are there other companies that do this?
There are very few. The only other company that I'm aware of that does something similar, and I believe their predictive modeling is not as powerful, is a company called Deccan. And we spoke with them a few years ago, and they were about twice the cost of this program. I wasn't even aware that this company existed until earlier this summer, and as we kind of explored what we had learned with Deccan, the previous company, and what this company was offering, we felt like this was much better value. I did reach out to other agencies that are using it, and they spoke very highly of the product and the services provided.
And so this wasn't put out for any kind of bid or anything? It's just
It's not.
basically you talk to these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as the dollar amount, I'm not sure if it exceeds the expenditure limit to put out for bid. This is a professional services agreement, which my understanding is that doesn't necessitate putting out to bid.
Would that be your understanding, or are you up on this?
Well, it's under 100,000, so
Yeah.
it should fall within the guidelines that you can just,
Because it's professional
And,
services.
you know, right after I got elected, I came over and met with you, and we were
Yeah.
discussing all these, various scenarios and where the ambulances should go and why, based on times and so on. And you seem pretty much up to speed on that and really have a pretty good grasp of where the ambulances needed to go in order to meet the call volumes and so on. How did you arrive at those figures at that point?
Well, we have access, so the data that they use comes from our CAD, which is our existing call volume. And so we have access to that, and we can look at that and we kind of see trends, but we're not able to kind of manipulate and fine tune the data to really take a deep dive if you just want to know what's going on at night or what's going on a particular day of the week or a certain time of day. This program will actually allow us to create scenarios. What if we moved this ambulance out of this location and put it in this location? And then it will kind of reconfigure based on your historical data. It'll project what impact that would have to your service. And so while we can look at our data and get kind of a snapshot and make an educated guess, this is really much more powerful to allow us to visualize how it's going to impact our service.
How does the data get into this system?
They download it from the RMS system that we're currently
So
using.
it's not someone sitting there having to manually enter all this stuff?
I don't think they're hand keying it in, no. I think that we give them access to our CAD data, which is computer-aided dispatch data, and then they upload that, they cleanse the data. It's about a 10-week process for this initial upload, and then so after that 10-week process is when we would start to have access to the data visualization and the predictive modeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I struggle with this because, like I said, when I met with you, I thought, yeah, we have this pretty well figured out. I'm not sure how much more precise we're going to get by spending $70,000 on this software, and is how much of a difference that's going to make, and is that really worth $70,000 for the difference? You see what I'm saying? I mean, it seemed like we had a pretty good grasp of where the ambulances should go. Is this really going to give us data that's going to cause us to do something different than what we're already thinking?
I think it may. I think when you look at not only where it's going to go, but when it should be staffed. For example, if we decide that right away we can't potentially afford a 24/7 staffing model for a South County ambulance, or even a North County, anywhere in the system. This will say, well, if you were only going to put one on for 40 hours, this is when you should do it. And so I think it will allow us to look at the data in a way that we're not currently able to.
So you don't think you could figure that out without this software?
I can give you a guess, which is what I gave you before. I said it appears that these are our busy times, but as far as saying, well, what if you put it here, and how does that affect the call volume and response times versus what if you put it here? I can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't have the ability to manipulate data like that, and I certainly don't understand predictive modeling for data.
So, looking down the road, I mean, how long will this program be good for? I mean, is it always updated and upgraded?
It is. So the initial purchase is a $50,000 implementation total cost with $20,000 annually to continue to analyze data. And so that's why the first year cost is $70,000, proposing a 50-50 split with the city and the county, because both agencies will realize the benefit. Moving forward, it's $20,000 per year, and our intention is to continue to use this for the next 5 years to continually update and analyze data. So it would be $10,000 for the district, $10,000 from the city.
So, okay, so that's significantly more than what we're talking about here, just the 35,000 with these ongoing costs.
It's $10,000 per year
So it's $50,000 from us, $50,000 from you, that's $100,000.
over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Is it a year-to-year contract?
It is, and there is a termination clause in the contract. If we choose to get out of it, we can.
Did you have some current software that you were going to not renew that would absorb that cost?
Yeah,
for the
we
following years?
are going to change our current records management software and some of the current software used as a training platform. There are some things we're going to change internally that should free up some dollars to be able to accomplish this. I feel like this is better value.
Do you have what is the value of that you're going to terminate?
I think it would probably be about $7,000.
Well, I have mixed feelings about it. But I would really like to know about North County, South County, what direction we need to go, and to have some data on that. So,
So if you
Yeah,
get
I
this-
feel like where we are today, sorry,
Okay.
that we have the data we need currently. Maybe down the line when we have more equipment that we're looking to move or stuff. I mean, I'm skeptical of the whole thing, honestly. But right now, I just don't see that we really have a need to, yeah, it sounds like it's gonna be overall $170,000 into this.
It'd be 150, I believe, over the 5 years.
Right, yes, that's what I'm saying, yeah. So, yeah, at the moment, I would not be inclined to favor it.
Well, and I would disagree just a little bit in the fact that if we can spend 70,000 this year to potentially save us hiring additional bodies because of the modeling and the way that it tells us we can do things, I think it's worth investigating that. Also, as we look to reallocate the resources around the valley, like he said, if we move an ambulance, hypothetically, if we move an ambulance from the South Valley station and put it across the street, does that improve response times? Does it give us better this way? Which right now we don't have the ability to do that. And I think the chief's time is better spent managing the fleet and doing that as opposed to analyzing and creating these data. And I don't know if you have anybody on staff that has the capability to do that. I've done some predictive modeling, not to this extent, and I don't by any means claim to be very smart about it, but I think with where we're trying to go with the ambulance district to change it, to improve service throughout the entire county, it is a worthwhile investment to see. And my thought is, for us, it's only a one-year look. If we look at it, we don't like it, then we come back next year and say, no, we're not going to participate. So for me, it's not $150,000, it's $35,000 for the year for us.
Well, plus that includes the first year's contract?
The 35
Yeah,
includes
okay.
the full first year.
Yeah.
Now, if you get this implemented, you said it takes 2 months to cleanse the data, so by budget time, we should have
Yeah,
potentially some information that would
Yeah.
help us
yeah.
maybe project out what we need to do, if any changes for the FY25 budget, if that helps.
We're really trying to get this up and running before both agencies build their FY25 budgets to help guide decision-making.
And to be clear, the ambulance district on the city side does not carry fund balances. The way we have been doing the billing, we give them 11 payments, and then the 12th payment is a settlement payment. So they might have a little bit of cash over there, but when I talk to finance, the way we settle it up, they really don't have fund balance. The only reason they have it this year is because we haven't done a settlement. So. And had this come 2 weeks later, this may not have been an option, so.
well, I still have concerns about that end of it. I mean,
Yep, I'm just providing information.
I appreciate the straightforwardness there. You having Motion?
I would move that we accept the proposal of 35,000 and use the credit to purchase the software.
Comments?
I'm gonna oppose it.
Okay. We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No.
Opposed?
No.
1. Okay. Motion passes 2-1.
Thank you, Commissioners. Second item I have before you is a request for the shared funding of the station alerting system between the city and the county. The total cost of the system that the city of Pocatello is executed contract to install is $500,000 for 5 stations. Only 4 of those stations are within the response zone of the Bannock County Ambulance District. The other station is actually at the Pocatello Airport, which is outside of the ambulance district. And so we took that station off, and we're only asking for a cost share for the additional $400,000 for the remaining 4 stations in town that all house ambulances and respond throughout the county for EMS. So that would be, and we're proposing a 50-50 cost share between the city and the county, and so we're asking the county for $200,000 towards this project.
This is another one that I have concerns about. But I was informed last week that we've had calls be 30 minutes delayed.
There are some. I did produce a report last week for Mayor Blad, and it showed that on that report, and the report only went back 2 years, we have had calls delayed as much as 15 to 20 minutes due to this missed tone alert thing, mostly at night.
I mean, and that's a big concern to me. If we're missing calls,
And we are.
it's unacceptable. I mean, basically. But this will correct all that?
It will. It has a redundant system that will transmit from the dispatch center to the station using both the radio network and internet. And whichever one reaches there and there first closes the communication loop. And you'll have to forgive me, Adam McKinney could explain this better than I can. And it will also relay a signal back to dispatch that lets it know that the tone was successful. And so not only will it be more reliable and redundant, it will actually speed up the call processing, which will actually be a benefit in the decrease in time that it takes us to process a call and get units on the road. So we feel like this is the right solution.
What percentage of your calls through the station are ambulance calls?
Last year in FY23, we had 9,185 total calls. 7,748 of those, or 84.3%, were EMS calls.
Has that trend been increasing or staying?
I think it probably varies by a few percentage points year to year, but I would say that it's usually between 80 to 85% EMS.
But on the other side of that, if you didn't respond to the ambulance calls, you wouldn't have enough calls to justify a grant on your fire department.
I'm not sure which grant you're speaking of, or
Any grants. I mean, the call volume for the size of your fire department.
I believe on our fire grants, we only use the fire data, not the EMS data. I'd have to double check that, but
My understanding was that that's part of the justification of sending a fire truck out with every ambulance, is that increases the call volume so that you're able to file for grants. So, I mean, if that's true, then it works both ways a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, if we're missing calls, we need to have the equipment in place to be efficient and effective. That's just plain and simple.
So would Bannock County be paying the city the $200,000? Or are we going to pay the vendor? And if we're paying the vendor, did this go through procurement?
It went through procurement on the city side, not on the county side.
Okay, so we could get those documents as,
I have.
just in case there's
Yeah,
challenge.
the contract has been forwarded to you guys just for your review. And I
To
guess,
procurement or to, who was the contract?
I just sent it as part of this initial
Oh, okay.
request to get on the agenda.
Okay.
And I believe I may have sent it to procurement as well.
Okay,
And I think we could work it whichever way the county would rather do it, whether they paid the city or whether they paid the vendor.
okay. I think it'd be cleaner to pay the city, and then the city just pay the vendor. And then that way procurement was done on the
Yep.
city side, and we don't have any responsibility on
I
it.
see a head shaking back in the back there that agrees with you 100%.
Sorry, that jumped ahead a little bit, just in
No.
case you approve it.
Okay.
So we have an alerting system currently,
We do, yes.
and when did we get that system?
That was not a system that was purchased. It's a system that's kind of, I'll refer to it as kind of the legacy system that has worked on the old VHF radio system, which has a pager component that the tone then opens the system. It's a system that really wasn't designed as a station alerting system, but it's worked for
So
my
we didn't
entire
buy an
career.
alerting system
No.
previously, we just kind of, whoever knows how to do this stuff, put something together.
Correct. And we were professionals. We didn't DIY this, but it has been built over the years on an original radio system, the VHF system, and then years ago, probably 15 years ago, the county transitioned to the 700 megahertz system. So now we have both of those systems hooked together. So this is going to be a much better solution.
So, if I understand it right, we don't have a redundant system, we have
Correct.
one system that has two different things trying to marry together to make this thing work.
Correct.
Can you tell me why we are missing calls? Why is the system not working to give us the calls?
I don't know. It's very idiosyncratic. It occurs at different times of the day, at different stations. We have engaged our Day Wireless, who is our provider for our radio system, and they've repaired and looked at the system, and they don't know why it's failing either.
And we don't have anybody, I guess, that could analyze it and figure out why there's a problem?
We have asked Day Wireless to do that, and they've been unable to.
And Day Wireless is who we use for all of our 911 stuff. They're our main service provider.
Yeah.
Which is working.
And I have visited with Adam, and he is supportive of this.
I'm sorry?
I have visited with Adam, and he
Uh-huh.
is supportive of this, as it is a need that we have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just wondering why we have the failure currently. you know?
Right.
So, I mean, I think you're right, we need to be getting the emergency services to people in a timely fashion.
Yeah. A motion?
Well, emergency services is becoming a passion of mine, and I appreciate the relationship with Chief O'Hearn. And again, as we look to try to modify and improve the service throughout the county, I think this is an important part of that, because as we look to expand into McCammon, that'll be a piece of that. This being able to tap into this system will be a piece of that. So, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the $200,000 as requested.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And just for information, that was budgeted in the 2024 budget.
So if you'll just have Jean or Brandy get with me, and figure out what you guys the 200.
All right.
And then I just looked at my email, I didn't see
sorry.
anything on the contract, but if we're gonna pay it through the city, we shouldn't need, unless the board wants it.
I was gonna say, can we use our credit for that 12th month?
$5,000?
No, the 12th month payment,
Oh, no,
if they don't charge us for the 12th month.
no, because that money expired on September 30th.
Oh,
We don't have access to that right now.
okay.
But we have money budgeted in capital that will cover it.
No, I knew we had that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to come out.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we exit the executive session.
How about the Board of Ambulance?
Or the Board of Ambulance, whichever comes first.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Matt.
That was for you, Brian.
Good morning, Matt Olson, Director of Bannock County Juvenile Justice. Counties in the state of Idaho receive funds from the state of Idaho through the Department of Juvenile Corrections in the form of JCA block grants as well as tobacco tax funds to help fund juvenile justice services within the county. And as part of that requirement of receiving those funds, we submit an annual report to the Department of Juvenile Corrections that we review with the commission as well as the local magistrate judge. So I'm here today to review that report and go over information and answer any questions and to highlight a few areas for the commissioners. So first area on this report looks at diversion cases, and it asks for a snapshot of how many diversion cases did we have as of September 30th and a breakdown by race and ethnicity. So as of September 30th, we had 195 current diversion cases, and you can see the breakdown of race and ethnicity there. And when we look at the next section, we're looking at specific intakes. How many new diversion cases did we have during the county fiscal year? We had 192 males, 153 females that were new intakes for a total of 345 diversion intakes in county fiscal year 2023. And you can see below the breakdown of the age groups for those new diversion intakes there in section C. Section D looks at the number of kids that were successfully discharged from diversion versus those that were unsuccessfully discharged. We had 265 successfully discharged, 49 unsuccessfully, for 84% success rate in terms of those diversion cases. Any questions about the diversion cases so far?
And the diversion cases are those, they're what? What's the point of diversion? What are you trying to accomplish?
So the point of diversion is if we can respond to lower risk cases either prior to their referral to court or in some cases even after their referral to court but before the case is officially adjudicated, we can get services to lower risk kids without having to formalize their involvement further into the system. There's obviously a financial benefit because when you look at the number of cases that have to be prosecuted, have to be processed through the courts with clerks, public defenders, there's a financial benefit to it, but the more significant benefit is if we can keep lower risk offenders out of the juvenile justice system, the hope is that we're going to reduce their likelihood to reoffend because we're not mixing them with higher risk kids. And our kids are screened, so we look at what is the type of offense they're coming in for. We gather some background data to do a quick evaluation to determine if, from the information we have, they appear to be low risk.
So with the village, would you expect like your annual numbers to go down a little bit, or is the village part of these numbers that you have here for diversion?
The village is part of these numbers. The intake and diversion unit, which we've had for years, has moved over to the village and still providing that function of screening the majority of cases before they come to court and then identifying which ones are eligible for diversion. Some of those they're going to divert right off the bat because the families are going to say, look, we want to participate in this diversion program where we can get case management and other services without having to go to court. Other cases actually go to court and they have an attorney appointed and they still can be eligible for what we used to call a court diversion, which we now call a prevention stipulation. And that change came about because of a change in statute in the Juvenile Corrections Act. So essentially it's a way at a pretrial to agree to give these families agree to services as part of a prevention stipulation. And they have 6 months to comply with some terms and conditions of that stipulation, but also access the programs that are offered through that stipulation. And if they complete that, then the prosecutor will dismiss the case. And if they don't, then we continue on with prosecution, and they could be placed on probation if adjudicated. So,
Thank you.
I'll move on to section 2, which is probation. Again, we look at a snapshot. We had, as of September 30th, we had 333 youth on probation. Again, you can see the breakdown of race and ethnicity on that. Section B, we had 13 kids that had suspended commitments to the Department of Juvenile Corrections. So that meant they met criteria to be placed with the Department of Juvenile Corrections. The judge ordered that commitment, then suspended it. based on their compliance with services and supervision in the community. Section C, we had 120 new probation intakes that were male and 70 that were female, for a total of 190 new probation intakes in county fiscal year 2023. The breakdown of those cases by age are there in Section D. Pretty standard, other than the 10 and younger. I think we're going to see more of those cases. You'll see that 10 and younger cases are often diverted. We are seeing an increase in some 10 and younger cases that are on probation or coming into detention at times. Part of that is we have a new facilities in our community that provide residential services to kids with developmental disabilities. Some of those kids are young. These kids haven't been from our county, but when they do commit offenses in those facilities, law enforcement responds. In some cases, they have been put in detention just because of the safety risk factors that they've caused. So.
You're saying under 10 they've been put in detention?
Mm-hmm. We've got a couple that have been placed in detention under 10. So for short periods of time, but so.
That's what happened when Steve started working over there.
So on that, Matt, are you starting to see a distribution of the numbers? It used to be numbers were a little higher on the older end. Are they starting to trickle down? As you mentioned, or is this pretty consistent over time?
This has been pretty consistent, but I think we're seeing fewer 10 and younger for a couple of reasons. One is we're seeing more, many kids who are under 10 are not competent, and we're seeing more competency evaluations being done. But when you look at those diversion numbers, you will see that in terms of the diversions, they did 25, so 5 times what we did in probation, and that's what we want. If we can get services to kids in need earlier without having to formalize them in the court process, that's ideal. So we will see the village, I think, continue to try to capture as many of those kids in terms of kind of through that net and prevent them from getting into the court system so that they can get services at this age. We know if they're getting involved with law enforcement contact at 8, 9, and 10, that's some of the best predictors of chronic delinquency and adult criminal behavior. So it's a challenge because we don't want to wait until they're 14 and 15, because then we've missed years that we could have intervened. So we see really the village able to intervene and provide those support services in a more comprehensive way for those younger kids. So just to kind of break this down, essentially of all the referrals law enforcement made in 2023, 64% of those referrals were diverted. And so as a percentage, that's a very good percentage, a high percentage. And again, they had a good success rate of 84%. So back to the probation numbers, we did, when we look at probation releases, we had 147 cases that were released successfully and 5 unsuccessfully. So our successful completion rate was 96.7%, which the previous year we were at 86.3%. So when we look at the petitions that were filed into court, a petition is a referring document. It can have multiple charges. We had 733 petitions that were filed within the juvenile court. We filed, as probation officers, 209 probation violations during the county fiscal year and 16 contempt or probation violations against parents. Those would be instances where they're either allowing probation violations, or they're not reporting probation violations, or they're incurring probation violations, or they're not participating in programs that they're ordered to participate in. The next section looks at the crimes listed on the petitions. During county fiscal year 23, there was 104 felonies that were petitioned into juvenile court, 549 misdemeanors, and 286 status offenses. And those status offenses are offenses based on kids' age, things like curfew, runaway, truancy, but that also includes tobacco and alcohol. We had 107 tobacco citations filed in juvenile court and 38 alcohol citations. So, any questions about the breakdown of those?
So is vaping considered tobacco?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And for us, once vaping became more popular, we've seen an increase in the number of vaping citations. Just to provide some background on that, we had 141 vaping citations the previous county fiscal year. We had 107 this county fiscal year. A lot of those citations, of course, come from the school, where kids are caught vaping either on school grounds or near school grounds, so. When we look at recidivism, there were 111 kids that were in our recidivism cohort. So we go back 2 years. So these were kids that were released from probation during county fiscal year 2021. And so there were 111 kids released from probation during that year. We look at, did they get a new misdemeanor? Were they adjudicated on a new misdemeanor or felony level charge in the certain timeframes after their release? And so when we look at the time frame of 6 months after release, we had 7 kids of those 111 that reoffended for 6.3%. Now, if they reoffend at 6 months, then they're reoffend at 12 months and 24 months, so they've already reoffended in that 24-month period. So at 12 months, there was 18 for 16.2, and at 24 months, there was 25 kids that had reoffended 24 months post their release for a total of 22.5. That was a 1% increase for us from the previous year.
And in theory, some of the village services will help work on bringing those numbers down a little bit.
I think our challenge is we divert the lower risk kids. The concentration that we have on probation is higher risk kids that are more at greater risk of becoming chronic offenders. So our goal is, whether it's diversion cases or probation cases, to always be striving to understand why the recidivism is occurring and what we can do to reduce that recidivism. So there's been a change in how we've measured recidivism over the years. It used to be that you looked at from the date they were placed on probation, did they recidivate within 24 months? And now it is from the time frame that they are released from probation. This next section that looks at reoffense does measure whether or not they had a new misdemeanor or felony level offense while on probation. And that was 33 kids for 29%. So, you know, that's to me, a pretty good indicator that the kids on probation are those higher risk kids. They're offending. We're working to get services and interventions into place by the time they're released from probation. The hope is that we've reduced their risk to reoffend, and we do what's called a youth level of service inventory when they're first on probation, but before we release them from probation, we redo that assessment to determine whether or not they've reduced their risks in what are called criminogenic risk areas. So where they were at higher risk to reoffend because they had substance abuse problems, or there was problems within the family, or there were problems at school, we target those areas for intervention, and then we reevaluate to see if those factors have changed based on their behavior.
So if a youth is on probation, turns 18 years of age, what's the process?
So youth can be on probation up until their 21st birthday. The Juvenile Corrections Act jurisdiction ends at age 21.
Okay.
If they're placed on probation, the maximum period is for 3 years. So if a youth gets placed on probation at 16, he can be on probation up until his 19th birthday, or for 3 years up until age 19 and beyond, depending on when he was adjudicated. We still maintain them on juvenile probation, but if they're going to go to jail and those types of things, of course, they'd go to the adult jail. So we have kids 18, 19, and some kids that are 20 that are still on probation being supervised by juvenile probation officers.
Okay.
In restitution, this section 5, this would be reimbursement to victims for out-of-pocket loss. There was $9,702.28 collected during the county fiscal year. This next fiscal year, I know we've had some significant restitution cases in terms of cost. I know in this, for us, this last month of the county fiscal year, there was $34,000 worth of restitution claims. Some of those from a couple of very large claims. So I think 2024 will look very different, but our goal is to always make sure that we're responding to the restitution needs of victims. 2023, this has usually been a strength for us. 2023, we did not do as well as I would like or expect. We had, we were scheduled to collect $13,529. We collected $9,702, which puts us behind the ball a little bit. So that means people aren't making as big a payment as they're supposed to, or they've missed a payment. So it doesn't mean that the case is closed. We still pursue it. We've had some difficult restitution cases, some that have moved out of town and we're trying to locate, some that are just not able to pay. that we're still working with that are making small payments, but we continue to make this an emphasis and priority, so we'll continue to do so. But are focused on that for an area, as an area to improve in 2024. We did have 36 restitution contracts set in 2023 and 28 contracts paid off in 2023. And then there was 2,011 hours of community service completed by kids within the juvenile justice system. So.
Questions? Motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we accept the report as presented and discussed.
Have a motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then, did you sign one of those, Commissioner?
I did, and there's one, a line for the judge.
Yes. So if I can get that.
You gotta get permission. Thank you. All right, Julie.
Commissioners, Julie Hancock, Bannock County Elections Administrator, here to canvass November 7th.
We just give all this to her to get this.
Well,
It was election day.
it was an election day.
Yeah, it was busy. It was great. An unpredicted turnout, which is always nice to see. Couple fires to put out here and there. I think one of our biggest problems was Reclaim Idaho and their petition gathering at polling places. They can, but they have to be 100 feet back. And so a lot of the parking lots, like the city and Holt, 100 feet is between the parking lot and the polling location. So the voters have to walk past. And so we just had a little problem with aggression and rudeness and argumentative about, please don't harass our voters when they're doing their due diligence and they don't listen. So I'm going to make a complaint to the state level Reclaim Idaho, because this isn't our first incident. Our first election, it was Medicaid expansion, I think, was the last one, and we had a heck of a time with them. So that was probably, I mean, other than being really busy in the phones, I do have to give a shout out to Heather and her team at GIS, though. To put an election like this together and to be able to have that map app and look at it and layer it with school zones and city boundary lines and the county fire district and the bond, and then to be able to have our voters go onto the interactive map on our website, and Heather put in there, you click on your house and every taxing district that you're in comes up and your sample ballot. So that reduced, I think, a ton of confusion for people. What am I eligible to vote on kind of questions, you know.
I actually was out at a polling location, and there was a woman there that was very upset about not knowing when to vote and where to vote and what was on her ballot and all of that. And she said that she had looked and called and this and that, and I was able to pull it up on my phone and just zoom in about 10 seconds and click on it and say, here, all right, touch your house here. And she touched it, and I said, here's everything you're asking for. It took 10 seconds. And so now you know for next time it will always be that way. But
I think it'll be
it was
really
great.
helpful next year. I think, especially having added a third legislative district, there's some confusion about which legislative district people live in, and so I think that next year when somebody is able to click on their neighborhood or their house, they're going to get exactly which ballot is theirs. I think that's a great tool.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. And again, shout out to the GIS.
Oh, yeah.
I did talk to Emma about being a little quicker next time to get the button on the front page of the website so you don't have to dig. Just trying to save you a click.
It needs to be about a month
Gotcha.
out.
Yeah.
A month out from every election.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that happens
Okay.
next spring especially. But again, shout out to the team for
Yeah.
a great job done. That was
Oh, for
cool.
sure.
That was
Yeah.
really cool.
And was there a press release or anything that went out that told people, hey, here's how you can figure this out?
Well, Emma put stuff on our website and on Instagram, I think, and Facebook. But otherwise, it was kind of we were pretty close to the date, to the time frame of when people started early voting, when we were like, hey, is this a possibility? And so when
Right.
Heather, it took a little bit of time for Heather to build it. I mean, it's not like she can push a button and make all that happen, but.
Okay, what I'm thinking is maybe going forward, we can put out an article and then do the same thing before every election. In fact, it wouldn't be a bad idea to put something out now.
Yeah.
And say, hey, here's what we were able to use, and then before every election, we let people know, because I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I think next year, we're going to need to do a lot of community education for our voters, not being a presidential primary, not having a March election. So I'd like to get with Emma at some point, end of December, and start talking about how we're going to list things, because I don't want to advertise, the caucus. We can't talk about the caucus at all, but we need people to know that we're not conducting a presidential general next year, or a presidential primary. So I think we need to get ahead of it, in other words, because we're going to get quite a few phone calls.
And why can't we advertise the caucus or talk about that per se?
Well, it's been a directive from Phil McGrain at the state to not have anything to do with the caucus because it's ran completely by the party. And we don't want the elections offices to be at all involved in any of that. So just trying to keep a little bit of distance from that. Plus, we won't know, well, we'll know. People will tell us where it's at, when it's at, if it's in several different locations, if it's at one location, that sort of thing. So, we're going to get phone calls, but how are we going to handle that when the phone calls come in? That's just some conversations we're going to need to have, I think, before next year. So it's going to be a busy year.
Well, I know the party is planning, every voter that's eligible will be notified
Get a mailer.
in a postcard. Yeah.
Good. That would be helpful.
It amazes me, though, every time we go over these elections. The highest percentage is 30%. And, this was, for this area, that bond was a big election to me.
Yeah.
And to have 30% of the people saying what's going to happen or what isn't going to happen is just amazing. And then people want to call and say, well, why'd you do this? Well, why didn't you go vote?
Oh, yeah. We only had 2 precincts that got up over 40%.
That's what I was looking at. We had some that were at 7.
Yeah, yeah.
7
Well,
and 11.
Look at the supplemental levy in March, total 8% turnout.
Yeah.
So this was pretty huge, I think.
So when you say it's huge, historically, what has a election in November brought out total-wise?
So 2019 was a 22% turnout. So, we're looking at an 8 or 9% increase, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then
Increase is
without
good.
the mayors being on, because you look at when the mayors of Chubbuck and Pocatello were on, you get a little bit more increased. So that was 26, 27% in 2022, something like that. So.
Anything else?
No, just appreciate the work you do.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we accept the canvass of the votes as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Jeff, are you signing this one?
Yes.
Did I pass it the wrong way?
You did, you went left instead of right.
I had 2, so I went both directions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, threw us all off.
Jason. All right. Tori isn't here.
Oh, I talked to Tori today. He just said the contract had previously been discussed and was ready for commissioners to sign it if they choose to do so.
Okay, and we did discuss it. Did you have any concerns? Anybody else? Hopefully last time deal.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we accept the contract with Ada County as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Shanda.
Morning, Commissioners. Shanda Crystal, Chief Procurement Officer. I'm here today to discuss with you a recommendation for the concealed weapons detection request for proposal that we did earlier this year. So Kathleen Ballard was able to put together a wonderful review team from a great cross-section of county departments. We had Daniel Kendall from the facilities on there, we had Adam McKinney from our IT, and then Braden Clayson as kind of an overall countywide individual on that evaluation team. And as those, we received 2 proposals for the concealed weapons detection RFP. And as that team went through and reviewed what was submitted in there and the benefits they would supply to the county, they also took a very long look at the costs that were associated with the benefits to the county and the importance of upgrading security. As they weighed all of those items, my recommendation to the board would be that we cancel the solicitation and then ask that a security update plan be made that then the county can look and review and then kind of march forward on a very systematic, as we do budgets and processes, that then everybody is on board in one direction at the same time.
I'd like to see the plan and hear the plan and be part of the plan and move forward in a direction that we all agree with.
I agree.
So motion on this one?
Mr. Chair, I move that we cancel the concealed weapons detection request proposal.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Looks like Christie's in.
Good morning, Christy Davenport, Management Assistant here for Braden Clayson. I'm just here to present the contract for our forensic pathology consultant. From what I understand, Braden has spoken with Christy Klauser and there is money for it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And then that this would be the last time you would see this contract this fiscal year, so it wouldn't be coming before you multiple times as I had in the past.
Okay. And this is for the fiscal year.
Yes.
So. Questions?
So I know, last year the consultant, toward the end of it, I think was just working on trying to get us a doctor, right? Or am I missing something?
Working on the doctor, working on the policies and procedures, and getting us set up for the whole, getting us to this point in time.
And so now, really, we're looking at getting some bids in to see what are the costs really going to come in for the forensic lab. And so what role does she have in that?
At this stage of the game, she's helping with the negotiation of the doctors and the scheduling of the facility going forward. So as we move forward, if the costs come in if the costs come in as presented and we move forward, then she will be in charge of managing and scheduling autopsies with the doctors and all of that stuff.
Managing and scheduling the autopsy.
We have a facility manager in the budget, and that is the position that they would hold as a consultant. They would be our facility manager for that first year.
Okay, I can't recall. What's the budget for the facilities manager?
60,000-ish, I think is what we put in there. Because we planned on this being a contract position, not a full-time employee.
Mm-hmm. So besides scheduling autopsies, does she have any other role to play in this?
Again, goes back to policies and procedures, interacting with the various coroners throughout the state, consulting on cases, whether they need to be autopsied and brought in, time frames, scheduling with the doctors, and putting everything together to manage and operate the facility.
Mm-hmm.
We might need to relook at this budget and do some reallocations through it, because I have, in a budget, I have a forensic pathologist, a tech, an admin transcriptionist, and then we have the extra pay period. And then in operating, I have professional services, but only for $10,000, so we probably need to move some money down
Okay.
from a budget so that we can make that whole. So I'll get with you on that, but we probably need to relook at that if this is going to be approved.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
When do we expect to get the numbers in so that we'll know what the cost of building the lab would be?
The bid, we had a pre-bid meeting last week, and Shanda is putting all the stuff together to get it out to bid. She thought that would be oh man, my mind just went blank. I want to say, I want to say 2 months, but that might be overshooting what she told me. I can't remember totally off the top of my head.
Is that for the total cost of everything that would be going into building the lab, or just the shell?
That would be for the shell phase 1, and then while we're doing that, we'd be trying to do the stuff. Actually, the interior wouldn't come in until after that, we wouldn't start doing the interior till after we get the shell done. So the interior would be another 2 or 3 months after that.
So, are you saying we would start building the shell before we know what the cost of the interior is going to be?
No, I'm saying we would get the shell bid in, and then we would then work on getting the bid for the interior. So it's kind of a 1-2, because we don't know the exact, if I remember the conversation, we won't have the exact, everything on the front, on the interior until we get the shell nailed down. And so that's why that's a 1-2 process for that bid.
I see. So before there's any construction, then the intent is to have all the numbers and know what the total cost is?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
And is the plan to start doing autopsies here up at Portland, I think is what was discussed,
That is correct.
prior to even starting construction of the lab, I assume? When is that projected to start?
Well, if the doctor that we talked to last week or 2 weeks ago agrees and this current employer agrees, we would probably start in January.
In January? Okay. And so do we need her to do anything until January?
Again, to put together policies and procedures and start the scheduling and start talking to the coroners and doing that, visiting with them to help them work out how the process will work.
Okay, so it sounds like, I mean, I'm hearing that this is pretty important for you to be able to get even these autopsies at Portland going.
It is.
Yeah, okay,
It
thanks.
is. Thank you.
and I have no problem with this, just because the termination on D, it says by immediate written notice by either party. I mean, it's pretty simple if we're not moving forward.
So if our bids, if the bids don't come in, then we cancel it.
We can terminate it.
So that's the part that I was
Me
looking
too.
for. Is the county protected and covered? And I think we are. So, motion on this one?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve or extend the contract for the consultant as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So Braden's second item is an extension of the forensic pathology grant provided by National Network of Public Health Institutes through the end of this calendar year. He said that you all know what that's all about. I don't know.
Basically, the grant was awarded, we didn't get all the money spent. We've been waiting for
That was the
formal
equipment grant.
written extension so that we could finish out expending that grant.
That was like $20,000 for computer equipment and stuff like that.
The dollar amount, I don't remember, but it was for computer equipment. And I think the extension gave us the abilities to spend through,
The end of this calendar year is what he said.
Yeah.
he knows what he's gonna get, so now we just gotta reorder and get that item, those
Yeah,
items.
And we stopped purchasing until we got to the point where we had the numbers for the construction and agreed to move forward at least through that phase. So that's why the holdup on this, getting the dollars spent.
Okay, we have a motion.
I would move that we accept the extension as requested.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. That brings us to signatures only. This is tax cancellation request. I visited with Anita yesterday and answered some questions. The one sheet, it is giving homeowners exemptions to individuals that didn't get it marked on their paperwork, manufactured homes, so. Questions?
So will this impact taxing districts and the funds that they
So
receive?
what I usually do is, between Anita, Jen, and I, we work together. Anita tracks the total dollar amount of write-offs. In the past, we have been fortunate that any occupancy comes on, covers these
Some of those?
amounts that are written off once the dollars are set. But right now, where we don't even have the tax bills out yet, which Jen is working on, we'll see how all those numbers are going to come in. Also, several usually comes in higher than what they project. So as soon as we get those values in January, February, we'll be able to start watching and making sure. If it does start to impact, then if it's the fault of the counties, then we'll send notice to the districts, let them know that they may not meet what they expect. But it has not been a problem in the past.
Well, I have to tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with your conservative approach to this. And this is one of those times where I love it. I appreciate it. And to tell you thank you for that conservative approach, because that does help a lot of problems. So I appreciate that.
All right, we need a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the tax roll request from the assessor as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, in signature only, we have Commissioners' Proceedings for October of 2023. Motion on that one.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we accept the commissioner's proceedings as presented.
A motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, under the consent agenda, we have a credit card application. We have salary rate approval forms and minutes for November 3rd and November 7th.
Any questions on the salary approval forms?
No, I didn't see anything.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the rest of the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.